Autoplay on. My nightmare began after I fell asleep watching Russian viral videos on YouTube. I lay in bed with my laptop playing dashcam footage of unbelievable street bike stunts, kids with GoPros climbing radio towers, only a gust of wind away from certain death. It was normal for me, falling asleep during a playlist of videos on YouTube or one of the lesser known video sharing sites. But the difference this time, which I only noticed when I awoke the next morning, was that I hadn't bothered switching from my Tor browser, where I had made a purchase of a certain mind altering substance earlier in the evening. At first, I thought nothing of having left the browser open or of the fact that videos had been playing all night. But for the content of the video that was currently playing, it was a compilation of Chechen beheadings and firing squads. I looked back at a dozen of the previous videos that had played while I slept. They were nasty, to say the least. Animal cruelty, stuff reminiscent of Three Guys, One Hammer, the sort of videos I had only stumbled across in GIF form while trawling various gray areas of the internet in which I normally avoided. I quickly closed the browser in my laptop. It didn't sit well with me that I had absorbed hours of true horror. I got ready for work, and as I showered, I tried to forget about the filth of humanity which could be pulled up on a playlist via common video sharing sites. To think that on some of these sites, if you watched a fun playlist of people doing stunts and dangerous pranks long enough, you might end up seeing Shovel Dog or some ISIS terror propaganda. Well, it was almost nauseating enough to make me reconsider venturing from a sterile platform like YouTube for my late night entertainment. I worked a 12-hour shift in my job in IT that day and returned home with a pizza, having largely put my morning unease out of my mind. As I sat at my table eating my pizza alone, laptop open, checking my email, I passed over a message with a few Cyrillic letters and part of my last name. At first glance, I assumed it was another cryptic offering of dick pills. I didn't click on it, but caught root to before the subject line of the message broke and was interested enough to hover over it, revealing the first line of the message. Cop leg root to. You have senior ed and bargain. Vitali V. I opened the email, but it revealed no further information. Still, I couldn't help but take note that the message did seem to be written by a human and directed at me. The message had been sent from a mail.ru address, which I knew was a common service among Russian speakers that phishing scams would normally not bother using against Western Russian targets. I deleted the message and went about my night in typical fashion, finishing my pizza, smoking a little weed, rubbing one out, and playing some League of Legends on my gaming PC. While I was gaming, my phone pinged. I unlocked the screen and saw that it was an email. It was again from Vitali V, with no subject. I clicked the message and it read, Legless, we watched as you watched our very personal video. We must chat soon. Vitali V. What had I watched? I thought back to the playlist that I looked back over briefly that morning. Were these Chechens? Why hadn't my Tor browser protected me from detection? Why would they care if I saw some of their terror propaganda? I closed the email and started searching, looking for a new variety of phishing scam out of Russia. I wasn't sure how much they already knew about me, but could guess it was enough that they could begin sending me threats and demanding some sort of payment. An hour later, I received a more menacing email from Vitali. It simply stated my full name and address, made no demands. I knew I could only speed the process along, gather some information to bring to the police. I didn't have enough family connections or money to really be worried about some Russian con artist on the other side of the world. I messaged Vitali back, I don't know what video I have seen that offends you, Vitali. What do you want from me? I waited, and it was only minutes before I received his chilling response. Your eyes, friend. I shivered, then thought about who could be playing a prank on me. Maybe somebody who had been passed over when I received my recent work promotion. I thought about what additional information Vitaly might be trying to get at to further destroy my already poor credit. But the monetary angle never made sense, as Vitaly continued to message me about what I had seen the previous night, and how important it was to him and his comrades that I answer for it. It really was maddening, terrifying, absurd to me that I could have watched something from a public server that Vitaly and his comrades deemed inappropriate for my eyes. I had no idea which video he referred me to, obliquely in his emails, but he certainly seemed to be putting me on while he gathered more information about me to make some further requests. Days passed with this back and forth. Vitaly wasn't always threatening, but he was insistent that he wanted nothing from me financially. I knew I had to get something out of him beyond his vague and often laughable direct threats to my person if I wanted to be taken seriously by the sheriff's department. I tried to remain silent for a full day, not returning any of Vitaly's emails or restricted text messages. But the following morning, my day off, a small package containing only a human finger appeared on my doorstep, unmarked by any type of delivery service or USPS label. More than disturbed, sickened by my anxiety, I went directly to the authorities. I presented the complete story of my harassment, how it began when I left my Tor browser open playing videos, the emails and messages, the package with the withering finger. I didn't mention my illegal purchase since Vitaly never mentioned it, nor did I divulge the fact that I often went to bed out of my mind on shrooms. The sheriff's deputies took my statement and evidence of threats and assured me that this was some complicated phishing scam, and that a demand for money or further financial information was inevitable. I returned home, relieved that law enforcement at least knew I existed and where I lived, as opposed to my having to face my online irritant alone. However, it continued to eat at me, the unknown. What had played on my laptop that night as I slept soundly? That weekend began relatively quietly. It was almost like Vitaly knew I had gone to the police for help, and he himself was lying low. On Sunday, another lonely, boring afternoon, it hit me like a brick. Why hadn't I attempted to re-watch the entire playlist? I knew the search terms I had used and the first video I had watched. Perhaps I could find the video I wasn't supposed to see? It was a slog of an evening. I recalled the first dozen or so videos and was sure I was on the same path as on the night it all began. But it would likely be hours before I found that unique moment that hadn't already had tens of thousands of views. I assumed so anyway. After 4 hours of half-watching Russian and various Eastern European viral videos, I spotted a blank thumbnail in a video that had been made private. I clicked the video. It had 5 views, couldn't be played, and its title was in Russian. I translated it on Google as Tretyak's Answer. I searched Tretiak for an hour, mainly turning up articles about a Soviet goalkeeper. I soon realized I'd have to search in Russian and switch the filters and turn on the translation feature. Many of the same articles appeared, but so did stories from months earlier about a missing Russian gas oligarch named Igor Tretiak. I clicked on a few of them, at first assuming nothing before I saw that Tretiak had disappeared in Yonkers, New York, not 180 miles from my town. I couldn't help but make the most basic of connections. Had I witnessed this man's last moments? Had Vitaly uploaded a torture, ransom, or snuff video publicly before switching the settings to private? If so, how would he know if I had watched it? I called my contact at the sheriff's office and sent them the link to the private video. They said they'd look it over and get back to me. As if Vitaly had some next-level spyware on my computer, he began sending me messages again, this time being much more direct. You will disappear too, Legless. You keep it up trying to see things that you have no business seeing. I felt afraid and utterly alone that evening. I had nowhere to go and no real connections in town. I tried to get some sleep in bed by 9 that night, sweat soaking into my sheets. I startled, my body contorting at the sound of the rapping at my door. He had said that he was coming for me. What could I do against Russian gangsters that had likely just driven hours to my home? I slowly got out of bed, the old springs gently creaking. I crept over the carpet as the knocking returned. This time it was more insistent. I peered out of my bedroom window down onto the front porch. There were two men dressed in black at the door. They knew I was home. My Jeep was in my driveway. I could hear their muffled voices discussing what to do next. Then all hell broke loose. Sirens blared and flashing lights came blazing up Pearl Avenue, and the two men jumped from my porch and ran. Soon deputies were parked all over the street and sidewalks, guns drawn, tracking the two men. Shots were fired. When it all ended, a deputy had been grazed by a bullet, and the two goons were shot dead behind my neighbor's garage. County Sheriff Powell came to my door, flanked by the detective I had met with in the office. I opened the door and they practically dragged me out of the house. They didn't say much until we were back at the sheriff's office. "How did they find me?" was all I could ask over and over. "Son, that video you sent us? You commented on it that night it was posted," stated the detective. "Huh? What do you mean I commented on it?" I laughed, but no one else in the room laughed with me. The detective retrieved his laptop, opened to the video, and scrolled down to the comments section. The sole comment was from my screen name Shroom Tender 420, which I must have signed in under to retrieve some of my favorite video playlists that night. It read, "Killer FX Dudes, Horror 10.